Hello and welcome to the usage report at fantasyfootballcafe.com. I am your host, Josh Shepardson, and you can follow me on Twitter where I post as @bchad50. And we finally got a week of meaningful football in the books, and all those smoke screens and coach talk and nonsense from the preseason is cleared. We finally see who's actually getting playing time, what talk of potential breakout players and number 3 receivers and things of that nature actually came to fruition, and what was mostly just coach talk and smoke screens to throw off opponents. And now that we have some meaningful action in the books, we can kind of sort through that and see who is expected to have meaningful roles on teams and who is being thrown out there as sleeper candidates and maybe not really justifiably so. The most watched situation, I believe, entering week 1 was the Dallas Cowboys running back situation. DeMarco Murray led the league in rushing last year behind that unreal offensive line in Dallas. And basically, all along, it's been stated that it would be a committee situation, but if anybody were to emerge in that backfield, it would certainly be fantastic from a fantasy standpoint if you happen to roster that player, because that line's going to create some running opportunities. And but as expected, it did turn out to be a full-blown committee situation in week 1. Nobody really ran away with the job. Lance Dunbar actually led the team in snaps played according to Pro Football Focus with 32. Joseph Randle checked in behind him with 28, and Darren McFadden brought up the rear with just 10. Randle led the backs in carries by a wide margin. He totaled 16. Dunbar was a non-factor as a runner. He was utilized entirely as a pass catcher. Darren McFadden reeled in 6 carries for himself, as well as 1 reception on 1 target. So clearly McFadden was the second fiddle to Randle in terms of the running pecking order, but really the third back here in terms of usage in week 1. With the absence of Dez Bryant, Lance Dunbar's role could be enhanced since they are going to need some viable pass catchers. You're obviously not expecting him to replicate what Dez is doing. I mean, first of all, he's a running back, but secondly, Dez is one of the best receivers in the game. So they do have a big hole to fill, and I think Dunbar is going to continue to be utilized in the passing game. So if you're in a PPR league or if you're playing daily at a site like DraftKings that counts a full point per reception, Dunbar's stock is up. Randall's stock is actually slightly up as well, since he did get the lion's share of the carries with 16. But I'm not 100% convinced that he's going to continue to get that many carries. They have maintained that they're going to go with the hot hand. So if McFadden happens to break off a couple long runs, I do think you'll see him cut into Randall's playing time. And then there's the presence of Christine Michael, who I do think is eventually going to make this an even cloudier backfield situation. So I'm not saying to go out and get rid of Joseph Randle, but if you are his owner and you've got somebody knocking on your door thinking that they're going to be an enterprising owner and grab Randle off of a decent performance where he led the way in the backfield, I would certainly listen, because I don't think that the book has been completely written on this backfield situation yet. I do think that Dunbar is going to cut into any feature back's productivity based on the fact that he's clearly their preference as a pass catching back. But Randle was at least viable in week 1, 65 yards rushing, 16 carries, 3 receptions, almost touched the ball 20 times. And you have to keep in mind that the Cowboys were playing catch up a little bit, which probably inflated Dunbar's snap count as well. So still a murky situation, but a little bit clearer after 1 week, I think. Running back situation that wasn't expected to be worth monitoring is in Denver. C.J. Anderson carried the ball 12 times, and so did Ronnie Hillman. Now, it's important to note that Anderson was nicked up in the game. I guess it's an ankle and a toe issue. They haven't really gone into details with what exactly that means, but it is a short week for the Broncos. They play on Thursday night. There is a chance that Anderson could be either limited or maybe they play it extremely cautious with him and don't play him at all. We'll have to keep an eye on that leading up to kickoff on Thursday, but don't be misled by the carries. C.J. Anderson played an astonishing 40 more snaps than Ronnie Hillman. The snap count was 57 for Anderson to 17 for Hillman. Hillman did look better as a runner, but I would imagine that part of that was the fact that Anderson wasn't healthy. Anderson cost a late first round to high second round pick, so I don't expect his owners to just give him away. But if he puts on a lackluster performance on Thursday or misses the game, there might be a small buy low window, especially if Hillman looks pretty good. But beyond that, Anderson's still your leader in the backfield. Hillman looks like a much stronger handcuff than he did before. There was talk that Juwan Thompson might have a role on this offense, but he did not, even in the absence of Anderson. Hillman's a clear-cut handcuff there. Didn't get targeted in the passing game, but has shown an ability to catch the ball in the past. Was sharp last year before he went down, and Anderson claimed that role. So I do think Hillman's stock is up, but I'm not going to say that Anderson's stock has plummeted completely. Don't overreact to 1 week of football just yet, and do keep in mind that Anderson did play a whopping 57 snaps and was still utilized in the passing game. 7 targets for that resulted in 4 receptions, and with all this that's being made of Peyton Manning's lackluster arm strength, that certainly could play into the hands of C.J. Anderson as a check down option for him. So monitor the playing situation for Anderson going into Thursday night. Hillman's value would get a huge boost if Anderson is on a pitch count, so to speak, or if he's not playing at all, and definitely something to keep in mind for DFS purposes as well. The other backfield situation that I'm going to address is that of the Tennessee Titans. It's a committee situation, but one back clearly stood out from the rest, and it wasn't their recent acquisition, Terrence West. He played 23 snaps, matched Bishop Sankey's 23 snaps, and then Dexter McCluster brought up the rear with 14. West actually led the team in carries with 13, totaled a respectable 41 yards. Certainly not great. He averaging under 4 yards per carry, but wasn't a total dud. But it was Sankey who really shined. 12 carries, 74 yards. Was targeted 4 times, caught 2 passes, totaled 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air. And really, this offense looked great. I mean, granted, it was against the Tampa Bay Bucs coming off of a bad year. We don't really know what the Bucs are just yet. And they were put in some favorable situations with Jameis Winston not performing well in his first game. But Marcus Mariota's ability to keep defenses honest when he's playing right, again, 1 game sample size, you'd expect some slip-ups from a rookie quarterback. But if he continues to play at a high level, that's going to open things up for this backfield. And Sankey's the back to like in this backfield. But I do still think that we've got a committee situation going on. And even if Sankey wrestles that feature back job away from West and McCluster and claims the lion's share of the carries, you do have to worry about the bigger West getting some goal line vulture touchdowns. But I would say Sankey's stock is up. Don't go crazy going after him, but if you still got waiver claims pending, not a bad guy to stick one in on if he's available. If you drafted him, kudos. You likely didn't have to pay much of anything to get him. His ADP was very low, and it does look like you get a nice, handsome return on that pick at this point. But the fact that the snap counts were even when Sankey was clearly outperforming Terrence West does bother me just a little bit as a fantasy owner of his in one league. If, again, this is a good time of year. If somebody wants to overpay, if somebody's knocking on your door and inquiring, it's possible you could get a nice return on flipping him. But I wouldn't go actively shopping him. I don't think the market's great at this point. But if somebody's willing to send you an email, shoot you a text, discuss the availability of Bishop Sankey, then definitely listen, because he's coming off of a good game. I do expect he'll have some down performances this year, but the showing for Marcus Mariota raises all ships in Tennessee, and that includes that of Sankey in the backfield. Moving on to the passing game situation, the Indianapolis Colts got drubbed in Week 1 by the Bills, but that's not what I came away most noticing from a fantasy perspective. And what I did pay attention to as a Dante Moncrief fanboy, as a guy who was driving that bandwagon in the preseason, is that he ended up out-snapping Philip Dorsett by 40. Dorsett was declared by most to be the likely number 3 receiver there, but he only played 17 snaps, and Moncrief played 57. Hilton's nicked up. His playing status is uncertain. It sounds like he's basically week to week. No structural damage to the knee, but it is bruised. It was sore. He missed time. And if he's going to miss time, that's going to open things up for Andre Johnson and likely Donte Moncrief as your 1-2 at receiver. Dorsett gets a short-term boost, getting to fill in as the number 3 as he was penciled in by most to begin the year, but now would actually be if Hilton misses time. But Andre Johnson did not look good. Granted, the Bills' defense looked excellent, so it might be unfair to judge Johnson on just one game. But Moncrief hauled in 6 receptions on 11 targets. The 11 targets were second on the team to T.Y. Hilton. The 6 receptions were second on the team to T.Y. Hilton 7, as were the 46 yards that he totaled. Yards per reception, not exactly jumping off the page at you, but Moncrief did catch a touchdown pass, and it's not going to always be tough for Andrew Luck this year. Plays the Jets this week. The Jets were very good against the Browns. Keep in mind that quarterback situation of Josh McCown and Johnny Football is a little different than Andrew Luck and the Colts. So they are facing what could be another very good defense. Todd Bowles is the coach there in New York now. Did a fantastic job of coaching up the defense, but does have some talent. So it'll be interesting to see who Darrelle Revis is responsible for. I would guess that will be Andre Johnson. We should open things up for Moncrief this week. So Moncrief's a guy that I like a lot. Stock is up. I projected him to be a top 50 receiver this year before week 1, and I'm going to stick to my guns and double down there. I think there's a lot of paths to relevance for him this year beyond Hilton missing time. Andre Johnson, if he continues to look sluggish again this week, could open the door for Moncrief to snag a bigger piece of the pie in that passing game. And it's also worth noting that 3 receivers totaled more than 50 snaps. The team has a couple of very good tight ends in Dwayne Allen and Coby Fleener, but Fleener only on the field for 37 snaps, Allen on there for 53. So that could also be attributed in large part to the fact that the Bills raced out to a 24-0 lead. You would expect that the Colts aren't going to be trailing by 3 scores and two-point conversions every week. So that could result in some snap count fluctuation, but it is still promising to see that they went to the 3 wide receiver sets as often as they did in week 1. The last situation I'm going to touch on is that of the Green Bay Packers. And your leading snap getter among pass catchers was Davante Adams, but he only totaled 7 targets for that resulted in 4 receptions and 59 yards. 7 targets were the most of any pass catcher on the team, so that's a plus. The 4 receptions are solid, but the 59 yards, nothing to write home about. James Jones was the man that stole the show. He played 55 snaps, caught all 4 of his targets for 51 yards and a pair of touchdowns. So Jones really did not take any time at all to transition back to his former employer from a couple of years ago. Flamed out with the Raiders, didn't latch on with the Giants this offseason, and back in Green Bay where it looks like he never left in the first place. Rodgers had some trust with him and looked to him in the red zone. So you have to like that. Randall Cobb played 54 snaps. Granted, the Packers did get out to a decent lead. He caught all 5 of his targets, only totaled 38 yards, but did save the bacon for his fantasy owners by making one of those receptions a touchdown at least. I still have him as a clear-cut wide receiver 1. He's definitely the top pass catcher in that offense. And looks like Jones could rival Adams for that second receiver gig. I do still think Adams is the better play at receiver than Jones, but those that invested a high pick in Davante Adams, hoping that he would just run away with that number 2 receiver position and run away with the targets that were lost when Jordy Nelson went down for the year. They might end up sadly disappointed because Jones has definitely interjected himself into that pass catching situation. One under the radar aspect of the snap counts and targets in week 1 was Richard Rodgers, totaling 37 to Andrew Quarles's 24 at tight end. Rodgers, the better pass catching tight end, was targeted 3 times, caught all 3 of his targets for 27 yards. Not a big line, But anytime you're attached to Aaron Rodgers, you have some upside, and is a big target, could be a red zone threat as the year goes on. Certainly not a starter in standard 12-team leagues or even 14-team leagues. But once you start getting into these bye weeks and you have to plug and play some guys, if Rodgers happens to have a favorable matchup against a defense that struggles to defend tight ends when your starter is on bye week, Rodgers, I would say, has at least thrust himself into that bye week consideration. So Rodgers, an interesting name to keep an eye on for bye week purposes. Not a guy that you need to go out of your way to roster now, but when Rodgers has had a good tight end, he has utilized them a little bit in this passing offense. So certainly some upside there. Unfortunately, the upside has been diminished significantly for Ty Montgomery and Jeff Janis, both of which only played one snap. The emergence of James Jones is really going to put any breakout from the rookie third rounder Ty Montgomery or a second year player and long-term project Jeff Janis on the back burner. Hard to envision them seeing any meaningful snaps and looks unless there's another injury in front of them. And at this point, James Jones has earned himself some leash. So go ahead and cut ties with Montgomery and Jeff Janis if you were stashing them. With one snap apiece, it's hard to envision them getting any significant fantasy looks here early in the season. And on that note, that's going to wrap things up. Thank you for joining me. Check out the wonderful content at fantasyfootballcafe.com. A lot of good stuff going up, looking at viable players that are on the wire, injury reports. We've got the works there, and definitely check out the forums as well. A lot of knowledgeable fantasy football players and fans on there. A lot of fun discussion. Jump in on that and have yourself a ball. Until next week, I'm signing off. Take care.